Testing. Testing, testing. Hello. Okay. Good.
Good evening. We're going to get started right on time tonight. My name is Lisa King. I'm the Executive Director at Summit Metro Parks. I just want to welcome you to our public meeting. The QR code that you see behind us, this will take you to a sign-up page where you can get continuing emails, newsletters about the project as it progresses. So if you'd like to follow along, we have it handy for you right here. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Bill Zawiski, who is the water quality supervisor with the Ohio EPA, and he's going to bring an exciting announcement. Bill?
Got to make sure I have my notes. I usually don't do this. So we're going to share with you a story, and we're going to call it the story of two P's, patience and partners. When I was in college, patience was not something anyone has a class in, right? So the history of this project is one that involves patience and partners. Years and years ago, this was talked about. Wouldn't it be wonderful to remove dams on the Cuyahoga River and other rivers across the state to restore free-flowing conditions? We started, for those that are familiar with the Cuyahoga, with Kent and Monroe Falls. When we started doing our water quality surveys in Ohio EPA, it became very evident early on that dams altered a river and changed its ability to meet our, in our case, biologic water quality standards. And that's not good, because our job is to make everything meet those standards. So taking dams out would be an easy fix. And as we found out in Kent and Monroe Falls, it takes patience and partnership to be able to achieve those things. They have been achieved. In Cuyahoga Falls, we took out 2 dams in partnership with the city, which would have not been achieved had we not had funding to help. So we're talking about this tale, we're learning, we're going forward. When we come to the Gorge Dam, obviously it's a little bigger. In the mid-2000s, we really started talking seriously about, could this be something we could achieve? Ohio EPA submitted a total maximum daily load, a really long, boring report. But in that report, it recommended that we evaluate every dam on the lower Cuyahoga River to ask if it could be removed. And the Gorge Dam, being a dam on the lower Cuyahoga River, was one of those we asked a question about. So in the mid-2000s, there was some talk, but where we ended up was cost a lot of money. And we didn't have that second P, the partnerships, yet to allow us to think about those projects. In 2009 and 2011, we partnered with US EPA to assess the sediment. Because if you're going to ask someone to help you, they're going to want to know, what do we have to do? So the questions we asked were how much and what's the nature of that sediment? Is it contaminated? Do we have to manage it differently? And those studies came out, and for those that have participated in this process, you know the sediment in there is about 900,000 cubic yards, depending on where you're answering the question for additional sediment deposition, but let's just say about 900,000. And it is icky enough. Uh-oh. You didn't do. Well, no one told me I had to. I thought you were doing this. Oh. Start again, Bill. He failed. You know, Ramsey, as a former EPA intern, I would have expected more from you. So now you've distracted me. Where? So we're asking this question, and the sediment itself was in this wonderful category of icky, but not too icky. So it had chemical characteristics that said you just can't let it run down the river, but it didn't have those that said you have to manage it as a waste product. So it allowed us to now think and partner with US EPA. 2015, Ohio EPA was able to fund our first study, and for some folks, we had our really first serious meeting in 2015 talking about this as a possibility. And we came up with a cost at that time, I believe it was $77 million we thought it would be. And we had a meeting, and as time has gone on, obviously those things have changed. But we continued forward because we had both P's. We had patience and we had these partnerships building up. As we moved forward, we started asking very seriously, how do we achieve these things? So last year, we were able to go to the US EPA office in Chicago and make our pitch. Hey, we got a cool project here. How much do you really want to partner with it? And we did an application. It was reviewed. And where we are is our partners, and we want to make sure we understand that none of this is possible without a common vision, which is let's invest in the river and make it better, restore that river. And for that, the city of Cuyahoga Falls, the city of Akron, Friends of the Crooked River, and Gary Whidden were at the very beginning of asking when this was still something that most folks would call a pipe dream. Summit County Metro Parks, the County of Summit, the Lake Erie Commission, and Lynn Garrity. Without her emotional support, I think I would have buckled years ago. Ohio EPA, the state of Ohio, First Energy, the Regional Sewer District, and the US EPA. Without this collective partnership, nothing would be possible to move forward. So with that, common vision, investment, it is my honor to be able to say, as of right now, we have a signed project agreement, and this project is able to move forward. So our partners have come together and funded it. And through this funding, we have everyone in agreement that we want this project to happen. So I'm wearing, actually, I wasn't going to say it, I am wearing my When Pigs Fly socks because Steve Tuckerman and Bob Wyszynski, the folks that mentored me, that would have been their answer had we asked this question 30 years ago. But it is amazing to think of the work that has been done. It is even more amazing to think of the work that will be done and all the support that folks have given us to encourage this project to move forward, to restore the Cuyahoga River to what was once the most visited place as a natural area in the state of Ohio. So with that, I am going to introduce Mayor Horgan, who's going to give some additional remarks.
Listen, the name Bill Zawitsky lives in memory for a lot of reasons, and for a good reason too. Because early on, and not to give you a history lesson, but as we've had these, go ahead.
Go ahead.
That's twice. It's okay. I think I can pick back up. Those of you that grew up in the area, you know the history of this. I mean, this is, if you remember the plant, the mounds of coal that were over there, the dam that was there. It was just always there. I don't think as a kid. And I said this afternoon, probably unintelligently playing in the water in and around the dam, in and around the river at that particular time wasn't a very smart thing to do. It was just something that we did. To see this now come down, and these things don't happen without partnerships because you have to be able to bring other people to the table. There's a number of, I know city engineers, former and current, that have been working on the project almost their entire careers. The idea has been out there for a while, but finding the funding for it and finding everybody that is kind of will stick their neck out there a little bit to be able to do this. It takes a while to be able to do it. It's probably north of $100 million, I would think, so far. The city of Akron's contribution, I mean, there are so many partners when it comes to the county, when it comes to Metro Parks, a significant number. Our contribution is significant in not only on, lobbying the EPA and our federal representatives and the White House to put this on the high list of projects, but also there's a value of land that we have down there where this sediment needs to go at some particular point. And there's a lot of people who've worked, I think, a really long time, not the least of which are all of you. And I think that's the most important part, because when you see this, we've never seen the falls. I don't know if somebody in here is 95 and they've seen it when they were a real little kid, but listen, it's been covered up for a long time. And I think for us to be able to see it in our lifetimes is significant. and it is investing back into you, and it's not without your support and you pushing all of us to be able to do this, because not only is it a good policy, it's also a great idea. So I appreciate all of you being here and showing that support. I can't wait for it to come down. So thank you, and have a great evening. I do have one other event to get to, so thanks again.
Thank you, Mayor Horgan. So we now have a short video for you. This video is going to provide a high-level look at the overview of the project. It'll help you understand what the general project plan is, and it's best to see probably this video before we have our experts tell you a little bit more about the details. So we're going to do that now.
The Cuyahoga River Gorge. Created by retreating glaciers at the end of the last ice age, it's peaceful and it's dramatic. In it sits Gorge Metro Park, an escape and refuge from the day-to-day hustle and bustle and a treasured Summit County destination. Through it flows the iconic Cuyahoga River. Flowing southwest from its headwaters in Geauga County, the river encounters a large deposit of bedrock in Cuyahoga Falls, forcing it to make a sharp U-turn before finishing its journey to Lake Erie. With rocky outcrops, caves, and dramatic scenery, the area where the river turns towards the north has attracted visitors for more than 150 years. Coming from near and far, outdoor enthusiasts once flocked to the gorge to view the big falls of the Cuyahoga and to enjoy the amusement park rides, dance halls, picnicking, and more. And that tradition continues today at the 155-acre Gorge Metro Park. But over the years, the river has faced serious challenges. In 1911, the massive Gorge Dam was built to support electricity generation for streetcars and city lights. Its construction put the famous Big Falls underwater and forever altered the landscape of the gorge. In the 1950s, the Cuyahoga had become a virtual sewer. As the region industrialized, the river became extremely polluted. Like other rivers around the country, the Cuyahoga between Akron and Cleveland became a convenient dumping ground for raw sewage, industrial waste, toxins, and polluted runoff. Thanks to the Federal Clean Water Act and the entire Cuyahoga River community, the river has largely recovered from its polluted past. But the Gorge Dam remains. Today, the 58-foot-high, 425-foot-wide remnant of the past serves no useful purpose. In fact, the dam is the only thing standing in the way of a completely free-flowing Cuyahoga River from Kent to Lake Erie. Even though dams were built with good intentions, they cause a lot of problems for water quality. In addition to preventing fish from traveling freely, dams affect the dissolved oxygen, flow, and temperature of the river. They also reduce habitat, trap and concentrate sediments and toxins, and alter the food web of the dam pool. 5 other dams have already been removed on the Cuyahoga, resulting in nearly 10 miles of restored river. And what's good for the fish is also good for the people. These projects helped improve quality of life and drive economic development along the riverfronts in these communities over the past 10 years. That's why a large group of community partners have joined forces to free the falls at Gorge Metro Park. US EPA intends to fund the majority of the project through the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, and non-federal funds will also be required. A funding plan for sediment remediation, construction of the sediment disposal site, dam removal, and restoration of the dam pool is in progress. Meanwhile, the City of Akron's ongoing sewer system upgrade requires construction work in the same area. While both projects are being carefully planned and coordinated to minimize disruptions to the public, there will be park and trail closures over the next several years. Although the result will be worth it, taking down a dam this big isn't easy. So how will we do it? First, nearly 1 million cubic yards of sediment must be removed from behind the dam. The sediment has been collecting for 100 years and contains pollutants consistent with the area's industrial past. A mechanical dredge system consisting of a clamshell bucket, crane, and scow barge will troll the reservoir, slowly removing sediment scoop by scoop. This work will likely be completed over 2 construction seasons. Each full scow barge will then be unloaded at a staging area where it will be screened to remove any large debris. The still wet sediment will then be pumped through a temporary pipeline under the Front Street Bridge and then alongside High Bridge Trail. It will continue under the high-level bridge at North Main Street to the Chuckery area of Cascade Valley Metro Park, about 2 miles from the dam. The Chuckery area was historically a dumping site and will be utilized as the permanent disposal area for the contaminated sediment. To make room to store the sediment and concrete mixture, trees must be removed from a portion of the Chuckery area. The sediment is mixed with concrete in the pipeline to form a more solid material that can be contoured before it is fully stabilized. This is an innovative and safe approach that has been used at sites across the country. The disposal area is designed to ensure permanent stabilization of the sediment mounds, minimize impacts to buried utilities, and appropriately manage stormwater. After final grading is complete, the sediment mounds will be capped with soil and the area will be planted with a native mix of trees and vegetation, and contoured to look as natural as possible. Within about 10 years, the final conditions will result in a biodiverse habitat that will complement the natural beauty of Cascade Valley Metro Park. Next, the dam itself will be removed. The water level of the reservoir will slowly drop as the dam is dismantled. The dam will be deconstructed using a barge-mounted excavator. To lessen the impacts to the area and to reduce costs, it may be possible to remove only the center spillway and exposed piping of the dam. If left intact, the remaining sections of the dam could then serve as a cultural resource and potentially be repurposed as a river overlook for park visitors. The final step of this project will be to restore the river corridor to its natural state with a rocky channel and vegetation that will promote a healthy river ecosystem. Restoring the original grandeur of the gorge is our region's path to a vibrant future for the health of the river, its watershed, and its people. That future will bring clean water, natural beauty, recreational opportunities, educational experiences, and economic development. This project has national significance and is supported by more than 50 agencies, businesses, and civic organizations, as well as the public. Dam removal is critical to restoring the Cuyahoga River and completing a recovery decades in the making. From our industrial roots flows a new future, one that carries Summit County forward while honoring our rich history. The result will be a healthy, free-flowing Cuyahoga River for all to enjoy.
Thank you. I'd like to now introduce Courtney Winter. She is our U.S. EPA Project Manager.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the introduction. As Lisa had mentioned, my name is Courtney Winter. I am out of the U.S. EPA Great Lakes National Program Office in Chicago. I am the project manager for the sediment remediation portion of the project. So for folks who have been following this project for the last several years, you may be familiar with Mary Beth Giancarlo. She was the U.S. EPA project manager on the remedial design portion of the project. And so I've been really fortunate to have worked with her for the last year or so to get up to speed with the project, and am now ready to take on the sediment remediation piece. Before I dive into the slides, I want to take a second to acknowledge others from US EPA that are also here that are part of the Gorge Dam team. So Carla Rosenfeld is one of the project managers on the Gorge Dam team. And Susan Prout is the attorney that helped get that agreement that was signed earlier today to get it to where we were able to work with the partners and get to the signing. And Glenn Maxiner is the one of the engineers for the remedial design contract. All right, so this is just a brief overview of the topics that I'll be covering today. I do want to mention, so for folks, again, that participated and attended the public meeting last year, They really went into a lot of detail about the technical side of the project, the remedial action portion of the project, as well as the background on why this remedial approach was chosen. So there's a lot of alternatives, a lot of sediment sampling, feasibility studies that were looked at. And for this meeting, I'm going to provide more of a project overview and overhead of the details itself. If anybody is interested, if you want to get into the nitty-gritty details, there are videos available. I believe this will be also shared online on Summit Metro Park's YouTube channel, and you can access last year's meeting as well. So there's some more details within that presentation. All right, so I'll go over the remedial approach and then cover some additional work that's happening on the site within the next few months. So some exciting news that there's actually groundbreaking regarding the project within the next upcoming months. And of course, highlight project partners, because we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for everybody. And then touch a little bit on a tentative schedule looking forward and when we can expect to have this project implementation begin. So as folks are probably aware, the figure on the right is showing the Cuyahoga River area of concern boundaries and where the project is located. So this project was selected, the gorge dam removal as well as the sediment remediation piece were chosen as critical projects by the Ohio AOC program and the local AOC advisory committee. And these projects together will address several BUI or beneficial use impairments that have been determined as impaired within the area of concern. And by addressing those impairments, it'll ultimately lead to the delisting of the area of concern itself. So that's how this project falls within the area of concern for Cuyahoga. And now looking at, so why do we have to remove the sediment? I think, you know, it goes to show that there's a lot of sediment here. We're talking, you know, as Bill had mentioned, close to 900,000 cubic yards. We aren't able just to remove the dam and let all of that sediment flush downstream. So either way, regardless of the contaminant levels within the sediment, we would have to figure out where to put this. But because of sediment characterization, sediment sampling that has occurred previously, we've been able to determine that there are some contaminants within the dam pool itself. And so when I say dam pool, because I'm going to be using that phrase a lot, that's essentially about 1.5 miles upstream of the gorge dam itself. And you can see in that figure, and I have another one that I'll be showing shortly that shows the footprint itself better. But within that dam pool, the water depth varies from, the sediment thickness is anywhere between 1 to 34 feet. And so there's a lot of sediment there that needs to be removed. And within that sediment, there's PCBs, PAHs, oil and grease, and then as well as heavy metals, but at low levels. And so something that Bill had mentioned, he said the ick, I think, within the material. So I want to emphasize this because it's important. So the contaminants are at a level at which we need to address them and dispose of them and handle them appropriately to remove that human health risk as well as risk to fish and wildlife populations. But the good news is that they're not at as high of a level where it's necessary for us to categorize them as a hazardous waste or waste that needs to be treated under TSCA or RCRA, which are regulatory programs. And so it's dirty enough or icky enough material that we need to dispose and handle it properly, but it's not icky enough for it to be categorized as regulatory or hazardous. All right, so I think that the video actually did a great job at walking through all of this, but I will go through it again. So this is showing the remedial action footprint, and there's some key components on this figure that I'm gonna point out. But the main point is what this is showing is where we're taking that material that's dredged and where we're placing it. And I'll see if I can get this. Oops. Hit it again. Okay, there, that's what I wanted to do. I'm sorry. Okay, so the dam pool itself this is where the dredging is going to occur, is that area that is in light blue. So 1.5 miles upstream of the dam itself. As it was showing in the video, this is going to be mechanically dredged. So there's essentially a clamshell bucket that's going to go in, it's going to get lowered, and bucket by bucket, that material will be removed, placed on a barge, and that barge will go to the sediment staging area, which is the area outlined in red here, and that's where the former power plant used to be. And so from the barge, the material will be removed, placed in the sediment staging area, and it'll be, the larger debris will be screened, and the dredge material will then go into these temporary pipelines. And so the pipes themselves are about 8 inches in diameter. There's going to be 3 of them. 2 are going to be active, and 1 is going to be on standby. And as the video mentioned, the pipeline route is going to go from that sediment staging area under Front Street Bridge along the High Bridge Trail. You can follow the dotted light blue lines across. So there's approximately 2 miles that these pipelines are going to run. There's going to be booster bumps in between that are going to help keep that dredge material moving until it gets to near Peck Road, where the Cascade Valley Park and the Chuckery area, to this sediment processing area. And so in the next slide, I'm going to go in a little bit more detail on what happens there. But from the sediment processing area, then the sediment, now stabilized dredge material, gets placed within the sediment placement area, which is the area that's outlined in orange. All right, so this figure is showing just another example of the aerial image before. We have, let's say, the Gorge Dam pool, and then we have the barge. The material gets placed up there by the sediment staging area, or the former power plant, and the material gets placed into this large, essentially the shaker, where the larger debris is removed. Large debris is then transported to a predetermined landfill, a designated landfill. And then this is the pipeline route along the High Bridge Trail. And then this is where that sediment processing area, that label that was, the area that was in red on the previous slide. And I want to talk about that for a minute because it really is a key part of what makes this remedial approach exciting, and it's a new technology that's being used for the Great Lakes Legacy Act program. So it's not new worldwide. It's been used for other projects, but it's new to our program. And the benefits and why this alternative approach was chosen versus the others is because of the limited space that we have within the Chuckery area. And so I can jump to this slide just to give a sense of the area that we're working with. So this is the sediment process, or the sediment placement area. This is where the dredge material is going to get placed. And you can see, just given the location, we have a Category 3 wetland to the top. There's a river, a road, and another road. And so we're really limited on space. And typical approaches for Great Lakes Legacy Act project involve dewatering the material. Sometimes you need a dewatering pad, you need geotubes, and you also need a water treatment system set up. And all of that takes space. And so given the limited space that we have within the Chuckery area, this inline mixing stabilization solidification system was chosen. And so you might hear, when you're hearing it being talked about, it could be referred to as a stabilization solidification system, the inline mixing system. It's also pneumatic flow tube mixing system. So lots of names, but basically what it's doing is the dredge material enters the system, and there's actually a sensor that's able to determine the density of the material. And based off of that, there's cement and other additives that are added to it, all within the pipeline system, all within this inline mixing system. And it helps stabilize, solidify the material so that we're able to handle it for placement in the sediment placement area. So if you take anything away from any of this, it's just that the stabilization solidification system saves space, and that's why the remedial approach was chosen. So as I had mentioned before, this is the sediment placement area. I'll cover it more on the next slide, but there are a few projects that are going to be occurring within the next few months, and this is the location where one of them is going to occur. So there should be preparations beginning this winter, 2023 and 2024, to prepare the sediment placement area for the construction contractors once they get on the ground, hopefully in spring, summer of next year. That space will be ready for material to be placed there. Right now, it's a two-cell design, and around the perimeter, there's stormwater ditches. There's a stormwater ditch that's going through the middle. As the video had shown, there's the cover of the sediment placement area itself will be using native material. Native seed mixture will be planted on top, and it'll be contoured so that it looks similar to the nearby habitat as well. All right, those additional projects that I mentioned. So the sediment placement area, the City of Akron is with funding from Ohio EPA, is going to begin work this winter, 2023 and 2024, to prepare that site. In addition to that, and this might be an area that you'll be able to see actually from Front Street Bridge. So that former power plant space, which will be the future sediment staging area. If you go past Front Street Bridge now, you can see there's a lot of metal left over, remnants of the power plant itself. There's sheet pile wall there. All of that is not stable enough for the dredging contractors to work on. It's not stable enough for us to be able to have that staging area in place. And so there's going to be work that's going to be occurring again over 2023, 2024, so that it's ready to go come spring and summers when the remedial action contractors are on board. It'll be complete. And that is also being led by the City of Akron through Great Lakes Restoration Initiative funding. And also something that you might notice from Front Street Bridge, tree clearing is taking place just to the west of the outfall from Front Street Bridge. And the reason for this is because the construction contractors are going to need access to the dam pool upstream of the dam. And a lot of their equipment is too tall to go under the bridge. And so they need an access point on that side of Front Street Bridge. And so Summit Metro Parks is actually undergoing, which I'm sure some of you are already aware of, addressing non-native plants within Gorge Metro Park. And so it's great, again, talking about partners and getting this work done that needs to. There are certain bat windows that the project needs to follow, and so we don't want to impact potential bat species habitat that's within the Gorge Metro Park. And so by Summit Metro Parks taking on this work during the bat windows before our remedial action contractors are on board, we're able to get this work done, because otherwise it would come spring when our construction contractors are on the ground and those trees would be there and we wouldn't be able to remove them because of the bats. So there's tree clearing that's occurring just by Front Street Bridge. And then also that sediment processing area, that area that was in the map that was outlined in red, that area will be cleared as well so that it's ready to go when the construction contractors come on board. And another huge project that is occurring, and we are sharing the same footprint, is the Northside Interceptor Tunnel project. And so the City of Akron and US EPA will be working very closely the next 2 years as we share that space. Okay, and I know there's been a lot of talk tonight about partnerships, and I know that probably seems like, it's said a lot, but just looking at a project of this size and, not only with the volumes that need to be removed, but the money that's needed to do it, this really wouldn't be possible without these partnerships. And so I just want to give a big hats off to a lot of the folks that have been working on this for a long time to get it to this point. And it takes a lot of phone calls, a lot of meetings to have this list here of folks. And just want to emphasize that it takes a lot of work, and really happy to be a part of this great community and partners that are working on the Gorge. So the difference between, there's the non-federal sponsors. We have Ohio EPA, City of Akron, Northeast Ohio Sewer District, and the First Energy Ohio Edison Company. These are the non-federal sponsors. These are the signatories of that project agreement that we're celebrating today. And within that project agreement, they have cash and in-kind contributions that they are committing to for this project. In addition to that, there's also cost share partners. We have Ohio Lake Erie Commission, Summit Metro Parks, City of Cuyahoga Falls, as well as Summit County. And so all of these partners have also contributed cash and in-kind services to get this project done. Unfortunately, I wish that we could announce today cost estimates and we could talk about all of that. I know it's been a long time waiting. We're getting to the point where hopefully we'll be able to share it soon. But right now, as it's been shared, that the project is estimated to cost over $100 million. The reason we can't share with you today what the actual costs of the project are, we do have refined estimates, but we can't share them because we are hoping to put the solicitation out for our construction contractors. And so they're going to get copies of the plans and the specs. And based off of that, they're going to come up with their own cost estimates on how much they think it's going to cost to implement the project. And then we'll get that back, and then we'll compare it to the cost estimates that we have, and be able to determine whether or not what they're proposing is reasonable. And so to not jeopardize our solicitation process, we don't want to give any estimates out ahead of the contractors being able to look at that and provide us estimates. So we're hoping within the next few months, once that project, the award and notice to proceed is given for the construction contractors, that's information that can be shared. All right, dredging schedule. So the dredging itself, we're anticipating to take 2 dredging seasons. A dredging season is going to be approximately April through November. And so we're hoping to begin next spring, early summer 2024. And the 2 dredging season then would be 2024 and 2025. There'll be about a 3-month interim for the winter season where we'll have to demobilize and shut down. And so I just want to highlight that because that's something that could potentially change. You know, we never know how weather is going to be. We can't predict that. And so there might be next year, if there's a warm winter or slow start, we might be able to work longer into the year and get done faster, which would be ideal. But we'll see if Mother Nature cooperates with us. So this is the project schedule itself. So marking today, big celebration of the project agreement and getting that signed, getting that moved forward. Within the next few weeks, we should have a revised final design done for the project. Shortly after that, the solicitations will go out for our construction contractors. And then we have this winter 2023 2024. So those are the projects that I had mentioned for the additional work that's going to be occurring. The sediment placement area, bulkhead stabilization work, as well as the tree clearing. And then in spring of 2024 is when we're hoping to have that award for the construction contractors and bring them on board. Shortly after that, there will be boots on the ground, and we will be able to begin dredging and placing the material. And again, there's that demobilization period for winter, and then in approximately March of 2025, that'll be the second dredge season. And hopefully, ideally, if everything goes as we hope, with the schedule, the remedial action will be complete in winter 2025-2026. And so after that, what everyone's waiting for is the dam removal project in 2026. All right, just want to say thanks again. I have my contact information in the corner. If you do have any questions, I know we'll have some time at the end here to answer questions, but if you have anything else, you feel free to reach out to me. And without further ado, I will introduce Heather Ullinger from the City of Akron. She's a project manager and engineer.
Can I use these buttons? Thank you, Courtney. I'm glad we have the same date down for the dam removal. I was worried. So as Courtney said, I'm Heather Ullinger. I'm the City of Akron's project manager for Gorge Dam Removal. We've been talking a lot about the sediment removal portion of the project, but tonight I'm here to give you an update on the dam removal. We have been working on the design of the dam removal since 2020. So we've been going along hand in hand with the sediment removal team and their design. How close do I need to be to the microphone? Okay, I am not used to talking with the microphone. So my presentation tonight, I'm going to go through a design update, including information on access and staging, the dam removal itself, and then stabilization of infrastructure in the dam pool. By infrastructure, we mean Front Street Bridge, and our next steps for the project, and then a quick mention of the North Side Interceptor Tunnel project. You may have seen my posters out in the lobby, so I just wanted to make a quick mention of how that project interacts with this one. So our design actually includes removal of the concrete structure. And like I said, we're also looking at stability of infrastructure within the dam pool. So we're looking at Front Street Bridge, we're looking at storm outfalls and what happens as the water level is lowered. At the end of our design, we'll also be looking at river restoration, what needs to happen to the river, if anything, once the dam is down and once the water level's lowered. Our project team is led by GPD Group with assistance from AECOM and GEI consultants. And our funding is through US EPA's Great Lakes Restoration Initiative program. So right now we're at 50% design. In the coming months, we'll be moving to 90% design. So the slides that I'm showing tonight are based on the 50% design. That means that it's not necessarily final and that things could still change. So starting off with one of the most challenging aspects of our project is access. We need to be able to get from Front Street to the dam. And you'll see a lot of green areas. Those are our proposed staging areas. The reason that we have so many is because as we lower the water level, we'll be changing the whole site. We'll be gaining land and we'll be reducing the amount of water. So we need access on both sides of the river. We need access through the river. So starting on the north side of this figure, Gorge Metro Park, the main parking lot, that is one of our main access areas. We'll be using the lower Gorge Trail, widening it slightly so that we can get trucks and construction equipment to the north side of the dam there. We'll also be using the High Bridge Trail parking lot, and that will be our barge access. So we'll be going in using barges from the High Bridge Trail through the dam pool to get down to the dam. On the south side of the river, like I said, we'll be using the High Bridge Trail parking lot. We'll be using the High Bridge Trail, which is shown in purple, to get down to the south side of the dam. High Bridge Trailhead, the parking lot's pretty small, so since we have to get barges launched from there, we'll be improving that parking lot, which means expanding it. Expanding it so we can launch barges from there. We'll also be using that site to unload the barges and load that debris or supplies into trucks and get them out to Front Street Bridge. This area will be removed after construction, so this is a temporary build out just for our use during construction. And I wanted to mention one benefit of using this site is it's downstream of Front Street Bridge, so we don't have to worry about the clearance issue under Front Street Bridge. Our staging area on the north side that we're going to be building out is just off of the lower Gorge Trail. We're going to be using this site for a crane setup. We'll also be using this site to as a turnaround area for trucks or construction equipment, so they don't have to back down the very long trail to get out to the parking lot. That's not very safe. And this will also be removed after construction and the area will be restored. So how will we actually remove the dam? We have a lot of things to consider because we live in Ohio. And so we have weather, and we have wet weather, like April, and we have dry weather, like July. And so these variations, we have to plan for this in our design. And so the other thing that we have to accommodate is ODNR is requiring us to meet a drawdown limit of 1 foot per week. So we can only lower the water level 1 foot per week. So this is something that we have to consider as well. And what we've come up with is siphons. So we'll be using siphons to lower the water level. So this is a figure showing the siphons, and I'm not going to explain to you what the different colors are, but we will be using a mix of notching. So we'll be notching the dam, we'll be placing the siphons, we'll be removing that portion of the dam, and then we'll be replacing the siphons, notching again, and going through that sequence 4 times. So we'll go through that sequence 4 times. There's a 5th part of the sequence that does not require siphons. So when the dam is down low enough, we will not need siphons. We will just remove the remaining dam structure as is, just with accessing from the riverbed. I mentioned Front Street Bridge earlier, so we're looking at Front Street Bridge and the stability. Also the stability of the roadway that goes across Front Street Bridge. Right now we know that the north side of the road needs to be stable. It needs to be stabilized as part of our design. So we're looking at what that means and how that can be implemented. We'll be definitely monitoring the roadway and the bridge during our construction. Other considerations in the dam pool are the stormwater outfalls. So these are the pipes that are bringing rainwater down into the dam pool. Right now they're very high. When our water surface goes down 40 feet, we need to make sure that that riverbank is stable and that we're not going to cause erosion by Front Street Bridge. So we're looking at this as part of our design as well, whether we need to stabilize the riverbank or whether we need to lower the pipe. We've also been working with US EPA's design team on the former power plant site, as Courtney mentioned. This has been a collaboration between the different construction projects, who's going to do what, to make sure that this site is stable as we remove all of the sediment around it and lower the water level. So our next steps. So we obviously need to complete our design. We will use that completed design to apply for construction funding for the dam removal project. And then we will begin construction, hopefully in 2026. So Courtney and I were on the same page with the year. And as I said, I wanted to mention the Northside Interceptor Tunnel project. This is part of our Akron Waterways Renewed program to reduce combined sewer overflows to the Cauga River. We're obviously improving water quality with this project as well. We talk about them together because they share a project area and a schedule and lots of meetings and coordination to make sure that we're sharing our space. So I have more information. I have some posters out in the lobby. If you have any questions about the tunnel project, I would be glad to answer them out in the lobby after the meeting. And we also have a very good website, akronwaterwaysrenewed.com, that has a lot of good information on it about our Akron Waterways Renewed program. So that is it for me. Thank you very much. And I'm going to turn it over to Lisa for questions.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Just as a reminder, if you have questions about the Northside Interceptor Tunnel, please hold those. You can speak with Heather directly out in the lobby where she's got her map set up. All right, so we have microphones, we think. Sure. Yes, I'll do that. All right. So we're going to attack from both sides. We'll have a microphone on each side. If you have a question, please put your hand up and we'll get a microphone to you. And we're going to need somebody in the back, I can see.
Thank you. Awesome job. Two questions. First one is upstream and downstream. Are there any appreciable changes that we're going to see? And the second one is how noisy are those pumps that Courtney mentioned to get the stuff to where it needs to go? Thank you.
You guys want up and you can step up?
So when you're talking upstream and downstream, downstream should not change at all. So that's the intent of that. Upstream will obviously change from an impoundment to a free-flowing river that will look more like what it does downstream. So that's kind of how it's going to be, that transition. So if you look behind like the Hi-Ho, that's where you turn that corner, that's where the pool starts forming. It's going to look like that, and it'll transition to being a little wider as it gets past the gorge and look downstream. So that's going to be how it's going to look. I was going to say, Courtney says it's going to be like being next to a Metallica concert.
That is not correct. No, I mean, I think that the pumps will be noisy, but the benefit of having the distance that we have to cover with the pipeline is that the pumps can be spread out so that we can hopefully avoid placing them where it could potentially be a nuisance to folks that are living close to, there's a few primary residents that are nearby the High Bridge Trail. And so we can try to place them in areas to avoid being a nuisance to the neighbors. And then also just to mention the project itself, there will be noise monitoring that's occurring throughout the duration of the dredging. And so we're going to try our hardest to avoid those impacts to the neighbors. We obviously don't want to we don't want to disturb anyone as much as possible. So that's something that we'll be keeping an eye out for and try to avoid impacts too.
Actually, I have three questions. Is one, can you give us an idea how big 900,000 cubic yards is? And two, you said 1.5 miles up the river. Where can you give us like an indication where that would be in Cuyahoga Falls? And then the third one, you had mentioned Gary Whidden. Can you talk a little bit about his impact on this whole thing?
Sure. So we'll start with the guesstimate, 33 acres, probably an average of 50 feet high-ish. So that's the amount of material. 1.5 miles upstream, really if you go walking just downstream of where the Hi-Ho is, there's the Eagles Club, what's that? The American Legion. The pool starts kind of right behind where so if you jump off, you'd end up in the pool. You're in that transition. So that's kind of where the head of the pool is. And yeah, for Gary, gosh, can we say enough about Gary? I started working at the agency, and him and Elaine, when it came to dealing with the Cuyahoga, and Gary as the citizen of the valley, have been instrumental partners and inspirations in continuing this, because as we said, this is about patience. And if you think of water, water is always moving and never ending in its quest to do stuff. And that is Gary and Elaine. They are constant. There.
My question pertains to sediment storage. How long will this be safely stored? This problem began 100 years ago, and it's ours to solve now. Are we going to be creating a problem for our great-grandchildren 100 years from now with that sediment sitting out there near the river?
So the intent is absolutely not. The whole purpose of the stabilization is to make that material not mobile, because we want to lock things in, those contaminants that Courtney mentioned at low levels. The intent's to lock that in to the matrix that we are creating, and it will have that soil cap that will be protected against erosion. So if you think of a landfill, this is the same general principles they work on, where we place our municipal waste, cap it, and monitor it, and make sure it's not eroding. So there is no way, you can't walk away from this, right? There will be a need for always watching it. But if these things are watched and any erosion, because that's our enemy, is going to be erosion, anything arises and it will be addressed. And Summit Metro Parks and the City of Akron, as our partners, we have complete faith that as part of their normal maintenance, because they don't want erosion anywhere else, because that leads to problems. So we're pretty comfortable with this process and the methods we're using. I guess.
Yeah, so there are examples both internationally and nationally where this has been used. And in terms of stability, I think it depends on the material. And so each place, the dredge material is going to look different. And so to compare that would be difficult. But that's the so when I was explaining the system itself and how it's able to, there's a sensor that determines the density of the material, and then that we're adding in the cement and other additives to stabilize it. There's certain requirements that are gonna need to be met in order for that material to get placed within the sediment placement area. And so I guess to compare different areas to this, it's very site specific, I guess, is the technology itself is going to dose it accordingly to this dredge material to make sure that it's handable and placeable within the sediment placement area.
Got it. What is the estimated depth of the water behind the bridge now, behind the dam now, and what will it be after the dam is removed?
So the depth of the water varies, obviously, right? Because we have a give or take 57-foot high structure that's on bedrock. So from, if you think of the Hi-Ho or the American Legion, 57 feet down, so that water is from 0 to 57 feet deep. There's sediment up to 34 feet deep, but that water's not going to be a continuous depth, because when we said in 2009 and 2011, US EPA did this sediment survey, they profiled a cross-section of that river, and it is wavy. It's continually going down. So anywhere from under the bridge, you could be anywhere from 25 to 30 feet of water. Of course, it's not 35 feet of water because there's sediment there. Once this is done, if you look at what it looks like upstream, there are places where it's 2 to 3 feet deep, and there are pools that may be 7 or 8 feet deep. And for the whitewater folks, if you watch them go by the rapids and the Sheraton, they can disappear and pop back up. So there will be holes like that. So it's not smooth. This is a cross-section that is varied. Exactly what it's going to look like Forrest Gump, we don't know. It's that box we're going to open up, because no one has seen this for over 100 years, and those kind of studies that we would look at today were not done back then. So we know it changes. From the coring we did, we know it varies, but exactly how it's going to end up looking, we're going to all share that view together as it develops.
Hi, my question is about the removal of the sediment from 0 to 57 feet. So as that clamshell bucket hits the sediment and lifts it off the ground, are there any filters or clean water bypasses in place to prevent that sediment from getting into the water system?
Yeah, so they'll be monitoring downstream of the dam itself, just monitoring for suspended solids, and as well as turbidity curtain structures that are put in place that will help to prevent that, if there is any material that is suspended in the water column, to prevent it from moving potentially upstream a little, upstream beyond where they're dredging and downstream as well.
We've talked about a free-flowing river. What effect does Lake Rockwell have on the river? And I think that's the upper Cuyahoga, I believe.
Well, exactly like the gorge, downstream, Lake Rockwell has no effect aside from the volume of water that moves downstream. And upstream, to the point where water enters Lake Rockwell, it dams it up and it alters the flow and the velocity and the depth. So the gorge is exactly the same at this moment. It stops that flow and backs water up to where it enters the dam pool, all gravity-based. So Lake Rockwell is no different in that effect, except it's going to stay there post-gorge removal. As long as it remains the city of Akron's water supply, Lake Rockwell will be a structure in the river.
Hi there. This question has to do with the actual storage of the sediment. And since there was a reference to landfills, how much organic matter from your sampling do you know is in there, and that though it's being stabilized with cement, or that are there going to be test wells that will monitor how much methane is being generated? Or is that even a consideration?
I don't think that that's even a consideration, that it's not anything that is a concern or something that needed to be incorporated.
If you participated in watching Kent, Monroe Falls, Cuyahoga Falls, there is this immediate drawdown. There is that surface layer of organic material that's in there, and then it dries fairly quick. So I don't anticipate, aside from the depth, that we're going to see much different here.
You had a list of all the partners. Do you have any breakdown as far as who is giving the most, or percentage, or dollar amount?
Well,
Just curious.
it wasn't a competition. It goes back to what Courtney talked about at the beginning. Yes, I know who gave what, but we can't share it as much as we would like to, because our job now, well, US EPA, when they bid it out, is to get the best deal we can. And so if we tell everyone, and everyone beyond you would also include the contractors that make bid on this, we tell them how much we're thinking of spending, how much do you think they're going to quote us? So I am sorry, but we know, but we can't share. But Lisa can. Oh.
I'm going to add one thing.
Uh-oh.
There are stakeholders that have been at the table, like Metro Parks, from the very beginning. And we have a unique situation in that we're supported by tax dollars. So in terms of money, we haven't given money, but we have given in-kind, whereby we would help get studies done. We would do tree clearing with our crews. So there were things that we did to support the project that was other than giving cash money.
Sorry. Nice try, though.
Do you have any kind of Yes, I live in Peninsula, and I'm wondering if if you have any idea as far as what the impact would be on the width of the river going through the national park and going through the Cuyahoga Valley, particularly in areas where we've had to rebuild or reestablish roads like Akron Peninsula, when the river got wider, basically, and eroded things away?
Sure. So the answer is 0. So taking this dam out is in no way altering how much water comes down the Cuyahoga River. The only thing that is changing is the detention time in that pool. So anything from the dam structure up is going to move faster once the dam is out. Once it gets to the dam and resumes its flow downstream, it is going to be no different than it is today.
Thank you.
Mike? Uh-oh. Run! Where are we?
Was somebody up here first?
So the question is the intent that the old falls are going to be exposed, partially exposed? What's this going to look like? So if you go down there now and you've seen some of the historic photos, it appears that there was like 3 or 4 levels of this fall. If you go now, that bottom level is there. So the bottom half of the falls is exposed. Then if you look across from where the boardwalk is, there's another rise of about maybe 3 feet, and it arcs, and then it goes to where the spillway is. So part of it's exposed, part of it is under the spillway, and then those upper levels are what is currently under the dam. So at least half of the falls will probably be exposed that are currently not. The question that none of us know is once that structure comes out, how was that dam keyed into the falls at the bedrock at that point? And none of us we don't know. So the cool thing is, like, if you've been a part of some of the other dam removals, when they're removing it, the contractors are really good at what they do. And if there's places that they're jackhammering out that they need to do a little bit to work with us to try and expose some more of that shale, that bedrock there, we'll work with them to do that. So we know some of it, you can see it. There's part of it that's underneath. You know, if you look at the old pictures, like the first picture I had, that's we don't have lots of really good photos of everything. Those are more rare. So I don't know the answer. We'll find out together.
Yeah, I wondered how this is going to affect the Gorge Metro Park, if it's going to be closed for a while, or if the trails are going to be changed.
We'll let the boss take count.
Yes, the Gorge Metro Park will be closed. We think for 3 to 4 years, maybe longer. For us, that's not a terrible thing based on what we're going to get in return, but it also is allowing us that time to have City of Cuyahoga Falls get in there and do some work. They are going to be removing the sewer system that has been under Gorge Metro Park for, a very long time. So that's going to happen. It allows us to get in and do deep maintenance that we've wanted to do. We will also be looking at maybe master planning that park as well to take a hard look at the trails that have been there a long time and just, have a fresh look at it. So we see it as a positive. It's unfortunate that we have to take that away from the public, and we do hate that part. But we've been a partner on this project for 30 years. And we knew this was coming. There's nothing here that surprises us. We've worked with the partners to really figure things out, and so that this project can be done as sustainably as possible in our park. So we will be continuing to be step for step throughout this project, but it will definitely be closed for a while.
Hi. I had a question regarding the dam itself. You said that there's a possibility that a portion of it could remain. Why? Is it just a cost-saving measure, or what's the deal with that? And then my second question is, will Front Street be, for the most part, remain open? I'm sure there will be periodic closures, working on the bridge or something, but is it going to remain open?
Those are good questions. I'll answer the first one, and Heather, you want to take the second one? So, I'm sorry, the first? I was concentrating on what you were going to say. Yes. I don't know how long ago we made that video. At the time that we did the video, and Stephanie, I want to ask you, it was earlier this year? That's right. So the video includes that section, which had a really creative idea, and we liked the idea. And so the reason I bring it up, the video was done about a year ago. Since then, we've done more studies and taken a harder look at that, and that overlook and using those abutments for an overlook is not something that we want to carry forward because it's really old structure. So all of the things that we discovered about the structure, it really doesn't make it something we want to keep or that we think would be safe. So we will be planning overlooks, just not there. And then.
Okay. My question is,
A two-parter.
sorry.
Gonna answer the question about Front Street and whether that would be closed. Like I talked about, we have a lot of projects going on in the area, and Front Street will need to be closed for a portion of our north side interceptor tunnel construction. The closures would be temporary, and we're looking at maintaining a lane of traffic in each direction as much as possible. So that is an option that we're still looking at, but we know that there will be closures for that project.
Thank you. I still have the microphone. Oh, come on. This is just a quickie. Is the pipeline going to be above ground?
Yes.
The pipeline's going to be on the trail, correctly?
Yes, it will be on a trail that's closed.
At Highland, yeah. Okay, my question concerns the dredging. It appeared in the mapping that the dredging will go from the current location of the dam and east and north from the Front Street Bridge and then north up towards the American Legion Lodge? Or is it just between the dam and the bridge?
The whole, I think the pool itself is going to be dredged, and the dam pool is about 1.5 miles long. So the barges will be going upstream and downstream of the bridge to access the sediment. They'll come back to the staging area, which Courtney talked about as a power plant. They will offload, and then the material will be pumped downstream. So yes, the barges will go all the way upstream that they can and to the dam and remove that material. So the contractors are able to dredge to within 6 inches-ish of the bottom. From what we know, think about this gorge is like this. Any sediment that is not removed, and there will be not 100% removed, will be gone the moment that river is free-flowing and will become part of what we call the natural bedload of the Cuyahoga River, because the rivers are a conveyor belt. They just want to move stuff. You put a dam in there, you break that conveyor belt, and now they start piling stuff up. Once we take that structure out, the river's going to go, thank you, and it's going to move sediment. And we've done these, I had to do math, and it hurt a little bit, but that river, if you go to where we took the canal diversion dam out under State Route 82 in the National Park, during heavy rainflows, that river can move 10,000 to 100,000 tons of sediment a day. So, and that's with nothing else going on. That's what that river does. That's what rivers move. So, restoring it, that material will be moved along to its new home in moments. Uh-oh.
So,
You don't get to ask a question.
not to ask a hypothetical.
Oh, I like these.
Oh, yeah. So,
Courtney?
you mentioned it was basically going to become a landfill. And my concern is what happens to that 50 years from now? Is there any plans in place to make sure that it stays untouched and that we don't end up with a low-income housing development moved in there in 50 years from now?
Chief?
So the sediment is going in a place that if you've visited that part of Cascade Valley, it was wooded, it was just part of our conservation of woods and so forth. We envision, the same thing being done with that area, with the sediment. As a matter of fact, we work closely with how they're going to place it and what it's going to look like when it's done. So, yep, it's going to be tall, dirt. It's meant to be graded to match the other side of the road. So it's woodsy on one side with a slope. We want the same thing on this side, and that's our goal. It's within a metro park, so it's never going to have houses on it. It's going to be maintained by our crews. We've been around 100 years, and we imagine we'll be around the next 100. So, it's going to be maintained as a wooded area. We're not even considering trails on it or, at the base of it at this point. There was a trail cut through which we can move, but as I said, the Cascade Valley is going to go through a lot of changes like Gorge Park, but it will remain a metro park. So we will be maintaining it in that way.
Okay, thank you. I did have one short question. The north end of the trail, this is unrelated to the dam, but there is a trail that got avalanched. Is there any plans of remediating that, and would you be interested in any volunteer effort?
Can you say one more time, it was what?
There is a trail
Oh, it
that
had a
was
slip?
closed.
The slip. Yeah.
It's completely buried under tons and tons of rock.
Well, I mentioned that we were going to take a hard look at our trails there. While it's closed, we intend to make hay. So we'll be master planning that park and really seeing what, if there's a slip, that tells us that that's probably an inappropriate place for a trail.
Okay.
So we'll be looking at all of that. So in terms of helping us with trail work and all that, I have to give you the party line, which is we have unions, so it's really hard to invite volunteers that are so gracious like you to do work that they do.
I tried.
But I appreciate it, though.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Fine, you're here.
Hi. Two-part question. For the deconstruction project, as Bill was discussing, the lower portion of the falls, it's exposed. About 50 feet or so past the spillway, there's a giant chunk of concrete below the falls. Is that being considered as part of the removal? And the other part of the question is, once this is all done and completed and the Metro Parks is working on conservation of the riverbanks and all that, is there going to be any access to the river considered, if not recreationally, but for safety concerns for getting access to that?
Okay, so I'll go the first one. You don't consider that a challenge when the whole thing's free-flowing? So yes, when they're doing, so what Heather's talking about is the restoration. That's that second phase. And if that is part of what we need to do to restore the river, and they have a big crane down there, they can pop it out. And then the access stuff. No. I think river access, like when we took the Cuyahoga Falls dams out, there are some access points that the construction crews did that were left there for emergency services in case of the need to rescue someone. So I can see, once this is an organic process, so as planning is going on, I think we can definitely consider that. And then you can.
So again, with a project like this and closures having to happen, it does end up being a blessing in a couple ways. So working with the safety services from Cuyahoga Falls and Akron, we will be looking at, what laydown areas or construction areas can remain to support that kind of thing. So that's not determined right now, but it will be. But I could invite you to our Valley View area next summer when we open up the river put-in, and you can actually go on down the river from there toward Peninsula. So we anticipate that the white water that's going to be created with the dam out of the way will bring some really pretty robust kayaking participants. But for me, I'm not an expert, and I think you'll probably want to be an expert coming through that piece. So we're looking forward to all of it.
Uh-oh, got a mic. I have a question.
Sorry, I have two questions.
Extra
First,
quarter. We could have charged an extra quarter to help fund the rest of the removal.
were there ever any thoughts of reopening the dam to generate energy?
Okay, what's your second question?
And then the second question is, are there any environmental concerns moving the contaminated sediment to the park? Like, will it cause any issues in the park?
There was an effort back about 2010, 2012, where a company called Metro Hydro came forward and wanted the ability to use the dam to power a neighborhood. I'm going to save you all the years that it was in court. At the very end, the judge asked how many houses it would power, and I think the number was 7. And so that project went away. That's the only one that I'm aware of. I've been there 25 years. This is the one I remember. So in terms of the sediment, again, so I'm going to put it in just layman terms, because not being an engineer, but being a stakeholder for all these years, how I would put it is the sediment will be removed. You know, as they're doing that, it's going to kind of naturally dewater. This mixing that happens, it brings to the total dirt, I'm going to call the sediment dirt, it brings a 10% or less mixture of something that's akin to concrete and additives that will help it solidify, whereby they can use a bulldozer to shape the mounds. So I've never heard anything that indicated once that's in place and we get it vegetated that we'll really have to think about it again, other than just keeping track of monitoring and any erosion where there's a point where the water's gathering. So in terms of contamination, no. Concerns from the metro parks and the stakeholders, no.
Lisa,
Oh,
if
go
I
ahead.
could, you guys gave me a microphone.
Oh.
You shouldn't have done that.
Michael.
If I could, I would just like to add to that. Keep in mind, the sediment is actually already there. The sediment is in the river now. As an ecologist, I'm a lot more concerned about leaving it in the river than taking it out and safely containing it. So, and we do have a question here. So
I can just
sorry.
quick add to that as well, though, with the sediment that's being placed. The mixing itself, and when we're adding that cement and the other additives, it's actually binding to the contaminants itself. And there have been studies that have looked at leachate testing to look to see like rainfall or groundwater flow, if there's potential for any of the contaminants to potentially migrate once they're in there. And all of that has determined that it is safe and that is not going to occur.
I have a question about the trails. So if the pipe is going to go along the High Bridge Trail on the south end of the river, will the entire gorge trail to the north also be closed for those 3 years, or just at the east end by the dam itself?
The trails will be closed, and the important thing here is we will have truck traffic in and out of the parking lot. So when construction is happening and they need use of the park, we can't invite the public in when there's trucks in and out and going up and down the trail. So we will close it because the parking lot also needs closed, unfortunately.
Will the spillway be removed also?
Yes.
Okay. Good. I'm sorry, say it again.
The penstock, what are you, spillways, the bottom flat part, are you talking of something else?
it will be taken all the way down to bedrock.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
The dragon's teeth
And
will be gone.
I have a
Dragons,
question.
yes, the thrust blocks will be removed. We have about 5 more minutes for questions
Okay.
before the library's going to
Right here?
kick us out.
One of the things that my optimistic side says that at this point, it seems like as this process is taking place over the next 3 years, what I've been hearing is that this gives us a chance to be stewards of the river and the surrounding land in a way we've not been before, so that these access points, you're going to, as the process, since it's a whole organic process, you're going to make decisions based on your findings, and that we can indeed, once again, be stewards of the land like we were, say, in the Garden of Eden.
So I think just by showing up here, you are participating as stewards of the Cuyahoga River. And yes, the goal is that we all walk away from this and that river gets one step closer to being healthier. Our last survey in 2017 and 2018 shows that our river is meeting our biological expectations, except in the dam pools. What does that mean? So yes, this river is way different than it was 20 years ago. Probably got time for one more question.
I had a question about the existing storm drains going into the dam pool right now, as we saw it caught on fire in 2020 from a fuel spill. So you're saying that those will continue to empty into the river at that point, or is there anything going to be done to divert those flows into the river?
I mean, they're ending up in the river. The stormwater would have naturally ended up in the river by us constructing storm sewers. We are just making a point. So storm water that currently goes in the river will go in. Again, Heather's concern was that when it's dropping down 20 or 30 feet, it's not going to start carving and eroding the channel. So everything goes in there now, going to go in there in the future, except for Heather's CSOs. What, you had the last question.
Yeah.
This is your moment.
My moment to shine. When is the next ecological survey you're going to do to look at that area specifically?
Okay, so that's an interesting question. So Ohio EPA surveyed the river in 1718. We'll probably be back in about 10 years. Now, the other cool thing that's going on is because of this massive project, the US EPA, US Geologic Survey has this massive group of researchers that have descended upon this area that are right now studying pre and post dam stuff. So they're looking at the fish, they've pit tagged and are looking at how fish move. They're doing spider surveys, they're doing plants and trees. Ohio EPA, as part of the removal, so once they start removing, we're going to be doing chemical monitoring of the river. To the stuff that was asked about Courtney, that stuff, we want to make sure chemistry-wise, upstream and downstream, we're comparable. So there will be continuous survey work done during the life of this project, and then Ohio EPA, as part of our normal assessing waters across the state, will be back in about 10 years.
Thank you all for joining us.
Off.